This is a diary entry number 1 of life, my life. This is my last year at school, and then I'll be off in the world. They're just gonna let me out into the world to do who knows what. I have dreams and goals and aspirations, but sometimes the motivation isn't there, so I feel like stuck in a way right now. I have goals and dreams, but they always change as well. I feel like I always get inspired by things really quickly, and I get focused on things really quickly, and I have passions really quickly, but then once it's time to, I don't know, I feel like it's just these past few years I've been so, it's so hard to like really focus and really like finding discipline to actually do the things that can get me there. Like, all I want to do is just distract myself by like doom scrolling or reading or something that's not related to my goals, and it's so frustrating. Another thing that really frustrates me is that I have some insecurities and some things that prevent me from like connecting with people and talking to people. This entire entry is going to be about friendships, I think, because that's probably my number one thing at college, at least, that's hard for me to connect on. Okay, here's the story. So when I first got into college, I didn't have too many expectations, just because I was kind of burned a little bit from my past experience in friend groups and stuff in my high school time. Like, right at the end of high school, my whole friend group that I was a part of, we kind of split up in a really kind of, at least for me, it was a very kind of traumatic way, where I felt like pretty alone at the end of my high school experience. So when I got to college, I didn't have a lot of expectations of like finding people that I really could connect with and feel safe around, in terms of like emotionally safe, to be myself and my complete self. And I still to this day think that I haven't really, like, I do think I've grown a lot since the 4 years I've been at college and stuff, but I think that experience in high school really was so hard for me to grasp, all the emotions. My first time feeling that low, like, of a point where I was pretty depressed and pretty, like, I felt like an outsider in my own friend groups and my own, like, relationships with people. And I just realized, like, dang, like, do I know anything about friendships? Like, what was I thinking about? And I think for the longest time, I always thought of friendships as like these tiers of, who's your best friend, who's your next closest friend, who's like, and for me to be fully able to connect with people in a friend group, I had to have a best friend, and then I had to have closest friends, and I had to know everybody independently or individually, and then when I'm in the friend group, it's like, oh, I know everybody, so I can just be like a fool, like I can just be like whatever, my own personality and stuff adding to it. But I always feel like I need to know every single person before I get into a friend group. And if I don't know everybody in the friend group, and it's just I only know one person in it, and then I just feel like an outsider, kind of. I feel like it's a heightened thing because, like, disclosure, I was adopted when I was really young, and so that's kind of how I think about life. It does shape how you think about life. I moved to the United States when I was like 5 years old, and so I've never really had like a concrete identity of who I am, because my family looks different than me, and so I've had to grow up a little bit differently than other people who might look like me and stuff. And so in that way, I think that has shaped who I am, and also how I enter into this world and how I present myself, and then how I've grown up and stuff is very different from people who look like me, maybe. And that way, it's really hard for me to like connect, as in feel safe talking to people. Not safe, but just comfortable, I guess. Talking to just anybody. When I was younger, like in middle school and high school, it didn't really affect me as much, because I think I had a lot of confidence and audacity, and I was just making friends with anybody at that time. I think a lot of it has to do with the different generations too, like how they connect. So when I was younger, like middle school, high school, I always kind of connected with people older than me, because I felt like I was a bit more mature for my age anyway, and so when I was connecting with older people, I felt like I got the gist of what they're saying. I got the jokes. I was able to just be this like goofy kid, but like able to like connect with people a little bit more mature than the age group I was put in. And so when it comes to connecting with people my same age, it's a little harder for me because I guess I don't understand the same ways, or like cultural wise and like other things. And I got onto social media pretty late in the game, I would say. Like I didn't have Instagram for a while, or really anything, like, I don't know, later on. I had it later on than other people, so it was just like, it's different, and it's an interesting experience because you don't really get the same things as each other, and so that's another reason why it might be hard. On top of that is just like, you are on your own path, I think, for your major, what you're interested in, and then you join clubs and groups and other things that might share the same interests, but people are always moving on and doing other things, and so you really have to, it's an effort, just like anything in life, you have to put effort into things. And friendships, just like any type of relationship, even though they have to have foundations of trust and comfort and safety and being able to connect with people, they do matter about like choices, like what you do with these actions. Like if you aren't willing to put yourself out there and be the first person to like, reach out and be like, hey girl, are you doing okay, or are you doing fine, or just invite them to do things and stuff. But if it's only you doing the inviting, doing the talking, doing the kind of initiating of the friendship, that can be draining. And I feel like that's what I've experienced a lot of times, and that's why I feel like I'm burnt out, if that makes sense. I don't want to feel that way again, of burnt out, and so I think I limit myself of how much time I spend with people. And if I don't have deep connections that I made in college, then I feel really down about that, or I feel like I failed in some way. But at the same time, I feel like I'm protecting myself, like it's always been kind of a survival game at that point. Just remembering that I'm okay as myself and by myself, like at the end of the day, because that's all you have is yourself. And so right now it can be so frustrating because at the age that you are, you think that you need to be at a certain level of like success and accomplishments, and just, I don't know, in terms of like your friendships and your love life and your life in general, like you need to be at a certain place by the age that you are. But that's really not true. What I've learned, at least, or what I've gotten from my experiences so far, which I haven't had a lot, by the way, so like I'm still young, is that like, I don't know, like I feel like wherever you are, whoever you are, like if you are working on the path to know yourself more, I think that's the real accomplishment, is like being able to be like, hey, even though it's not the same as it used to be with these people or with what I was learning or what I was doing and stuff, like the fact that I know who I am and know what I want to do, and can think for myself, and also come from a place of love for other people as well. Like you don't just think about all of your own development. You can think about, if you want to make connections with other people, start to understand how you interact with people. Like if you shut down easily, like me, when it comes to being in bigger groups than just like one person, just reflect on that and think about that, and how that really does affect how your confidence with talking to people. If you shut down really easily, there are some strategies to kind of combat that. Like I feel like there are definitely ways to work on it. One of the main things that I've done is just to it sounds pretty stupid, like just kind of test yourself, like go into conversations and go into groups, and or just go up to somebody and talk to them and like see what happens, because I feel like a lot of times we are always in our own head, and we don't allow ourselves to get out of that and just realize like other people also want to make connections and also want to meet new people. People do find like confidence attractive. Like they find other people's confidence to be like, oh wow, like if you're really friendly with it and you're like just trying to come off of like an authentic, you know, like, hey, I might be nervous talking to you, but let's try to get to know each other type of thing. Like I think that's when it feels authentic, is when you can really be honest with somebody and be like, hey, like I think you're pretty cool, I'm a little nervous to talk to you, but you know, let's try to catch up. And have to test out the vibe as well of when you do this thing, place or a situation that you can talk to people freely. You know, you don't want to just do it out of nowhere. You know, you want to be able to, if you have like group projects, or if you kind of just hit off a conversation with somebody when you're like in a club or when you're at a random meeting or whatever, and you like randomly start to talk to people, that's when you can really take yourself out of your own head and like stop thinking about yourself in that situation and just think like try to be more present in the situation itself or in the moment. And then I feel like that's when you allow things to be more free, more authentic, and more like natural. So that's what I've learned over the time of like connecting with people and stuff. I think the next part of this video would be talking about like how to keep those connections, because I think that's what I also struggle with right of now. Insecurity I think I have from what happened during my senior year of high school was probably like I don't feel like I cultivated those friendships in a deeper level than just like surface. You know, we saw each other every day, we met up to have lunch and stuff, and we would have parties and all that and everything like that, but I don't think we connected in a way that allowed for deeper talks and deeper connections, and just like being able to be there for each other. Moments where it's not always fun and always like vibey and stuff, where there's moments where you're struggling, you know, mentally, emotionally, and that's when I think I shut down from people, is when I don't allow them to come and be that safe space for me, because I don't really open up that much. Or when I was going through that, it was kind of an emotional time for me. Like I didn't really know what was going on, but I think I felt that slipping away of friendships, and I felt really alone through that. And I wished that they had reached out more. I wished we had built a friendship where it was kind of like automatic, they would be there or reach out and stuff, not like this kind of pulling teeth of like, oh, I have to separate myself so much from the group for them to notice that I'm not there type thing, you know. I don't think that's healthy on anybody's end, you know. I think there needs to be a level of communication that you should feel safe being able to be like, right now I'm not feeling okay, but then as the friend who's hearing that, still try to just let them know, like, you know, I'm here for you whenever you need. Like there's a balance of being there for somebody and also being open about your own issues, so that you allow somebody to see like it is safe to be emotional with me, you know. It's safe to allow yourself to talk about the darker moments and stuff or whatever. And I think that is definitely what makes any type of relationship worth it, like worthwhile, is that safe space to be yourself. You can be your like genuine, honest human self around them at all times. If you don't feel like I could call this person up and be like, yo, I feel really shitty right now, or I feel like I just cried my eyes out and I don't know why, let's talk through it or something, or like I had the worst day ever. If you don't feel like that person, it's for some reason you just don't feel inherently that you can call that person, then I would say, if you want to keep that friendship, I would say try to work on making that friendship a little deeper. But tell me if you ever have thoughts or emotions or feelings that you want to get out, like just let them know that you're there for them, and hopefully it can be reciprocated, that they would tell you like, yes, I would definitely like that, and I will be there for you too. So I don't know, I think friendships are really strange and they change over time as well. Like I think in college it's easy, but it's also hard to find deep connections. I think it's easy to find people because everybody's really around all the time, and I think like what people talk about later on after they graduate and after they're kind of in their jobs and they're more adults per se, like the adult life. That's even harder to find friendships because, you know, you don't have the access that when you're in college you kind of have access to a lot of people all the time. When you're an adult, you don't have that same access, so it's a little bit more of a struggle to find friendships that are on deeper levels. But I also think in college it's a little bit difficult to maintain those friendships just because, you know, this is our first time having all these other things and happening in our lives we have to focus on, you know, as young adults. You know, we're doing jobs, we're doing school, we have extracurriculars, we have, you know, different friend groups all around and stuff, or different connections that we made with people, different groups that we're part of, and we have to kind of find a way to balance life through all this. And it's just so, it's a mind fuck. Like, it's just so much to really unpack, and I feel like we don't always get to have time to do that. And when you don't get time to do that, you don't really get time to reflect on the friendships you do have, or, you know, didn't go so well back in the day, or the ones that you do want. And I really think reflecting on what type of people you want in your life is really important. Settling for anything in general, like not just friendships, but anybody, like settling for anybody in your life just to be there is just not, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's good for you mentally. Or at the end of the day, communication is really key. It really is. And I'm trying to work on that too, because I'm not good at communicating like that. If I feel stressed or if I feel insecure about things, like, it's really hard for me to bring that up to people. A, I don't want to bother them, but B, I don't want people to see me in a certain way. I don't know why. Even as an adult, I think a lot of people feel this way. But so yeah, if you feel this way and you're struggling with accepting yourself, loving yourself, I might make another video. This is just a rambling of thoughts that I had so far, because yeah, I needed to get it off my chest. But also, it's like the middle, I guess, of my semester now, and the semester, like, I have one more semester after this, and then I'm done with like school for now. And it's just, I don't know, I don't want my life to keep going like this. Like, I don't want to keep feeling this, like, explain the feeling, but I just feel like I'm failing at life, or I'm failing at making friendships, or like making the best of college. I feel like I'm failing at it. I know that's not the case. I'm doing really well, and I feel like everybody who's in college and is doing the hard part of like sticking with their majors, what their career is, what they're studying. Applaud everybody who's stuck with what they've been, you know, focusing on, what they've been working blood, sweat, and tears for. I also want to applaud everybody who's just like thought about themselves and took a break and everything, because that's hard for me to do. But I feel like right now it's really hard for me to motivate myself to like do things, like finish my projects, whatever. And making these videos this is very therapeutic. This is very therapeutic, because recently I just feel like very down, and I don't know how to like get myself back up from it. I don't know how to like motivate myself to just keep doing stuff. I do have something I'm looking forward to in the future, like a trip I'm going on in the spring to another country, and, you know, for studying. So I'm excited for that. But for this semester, I'm just trying to like keep my head focused. I'm just not a person that's fit for school. It's hard for me to motivate myself to get my classes done when I'm not like really focused on the classes themselves. Trying to figure out all this other stuff for the future, like goals and plans, and it's just a lot. And on top of that, to think about friendships and to think about how I feel like I failed in them through college, like, it's just a lot. And so if anybody feels like they failed at making friendships, or they failed at connecting with people, and not just like surface level connections, but like deepening them to a point where, like, you know, you have like a found family or something like that, and just know that it can feel really like the end of the world right now, because at least for me it feels like, oh my gosh, my time in college is about to be ended, and I don't feel like I have that. I've made those deep connections, or I feel like I failed college in a way, you know. But I really don't think that's the case. I feel like we're just at a crossroads. We're at a point where I think something is coming of like, I feel like this is a point where it feels like there's something that I need to focus on, and I think that this is a time where it's actually needed for me to like be able to think about myself instead of always thinking about how other people are perceiving me and thinking about how much I'm failing or anything like that. Like, I think this is time for how you can show up for yourself, and it doesn't always have to be about how other people view you and are judging you or anything like that. And then try those little tips of like, if you're scared to meet new people, if you have social anxiety, the best thing, take yourself out of, I know it's really hard and it's a struggle sometimes, but once you like take a deep breath and you start to really be in the moment of any conversation, really just going up to somebody in this situation where you're kind of forced to either talk to each other or you're at a cafe and you see somebody alone or something like that, you can definitely I feel like people wouldn't be mad if you just go like up and say, hi, how are you, and just maybe like talk about something that you noticed about them or observed about them, and do it genuinely, do it when you actually genuinely think that they're interesting or they're cool or something that you can connect on. And then because I do think in this world, like, people do want to make those like random connections and have some people be confident enough to go up to them and stuff. So that's all I can think about for right now. And I do feel glad that I made this video, and that if it helps anybody, just know that there are people out there that do struggle with these things and you're not alone. It will get better. I think it really will, if you give time to think of and reflect on yourself and are able to really feel all the feelings. Get in touch with yourself before you start always thinking about other people, always seeing what they want from you, always thinking of what they are gonna say, what they are gonna think. Just focus on how you show up for yourself. If you don't feel safe and comfortable with these people and you feel like they're draining you, and it feels like you're always the one reaching out, and it feels like you're always the one who's putting in effort, or just inherently you don't feel like the connections you did make back in the day are fitting for the time that you're in right now, let it go. Just let it go. And I think there will be times in life that has to happen. Like, in the future, something's gonna change, and then you're gonna look back and you're like, oh my god, I'm so glad that I took that step. I'm so glad I took that step in being like, this isn't fitting for me and who I am right now. That's all I have. This is my first video entry diary for fall semester. But there will be more. So yeah. I'll see you guys next time. I forgot to mention this, but I'm Rose. If you're new here to my channel, welcome. If you're not new, welcome back to my channel. But yeah, this is my video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.